Alright, what's up? What's going on, guys? Captain Monk here. In today's video, I'm going to bring you guys my very first build video. Now, when I say build, I'm going to be showing you guys the runes, the masteries, and the item sets in pretty much all these videos, these build videos I'm going to be doing. And in today's episode, we're taking a look at my top Wukong setup. So my Wukong setup, guys, isn't exactly the typical thing you do with Wukong, but I'm going to do my best to explain it to you guys and why I do it. And if you guys want to give me any pointers on things you guys think I could do better on Wukong, for example, or things you guys think that I could improve on the video itself, whether it's like more ideas of things I should show or things I should change, things like that. So definitely make sure to let me know. And without any further ado, let's get right into it. So we're going to start off with looking at our rune page that I use on Wukong. Now, the page I use here is not this one, so don't look at this. This is bad. We're going to be using this page here, guys. Now, what this page basically is, guys, is I have my quints are all AD, and I've got all AD marks because this is what I find the most effective. Like, I've tried out using just straight armor pen. I've tried out using armor pen marks and then attack damage quints. And I've tried out every combination with attack damage and armor pen and just kind of switching around, figuring out which was the most damage against different kind of enemies who are really squishy, really tanky. And I just found overall I did the best most of the time with just straight AD. I found just the most, I found I did more damage consistently with just straight AD. So that's what I recommend you guys do on Wukong when you're playing AD top, of course. If you're playing AP, you're going to want AP, but you don't want to play AP Wukong. It's not good. Don't do it. It's only for trolling. And I do enjoy doing it every once in a while, but it's not good. Trust me, it's not. I wouldn't know. As far as the other things go, we got armor seals and then magic resist glyphs. And the reason I do this, guys, is although most top laners going to be going against will be AD, a few of them will be AP, and if you're playing ranked, you'll be able to know what you're going against, so you can kind of prepare. You have like all magic resist against an AP, and then all AD against, or not all AD, all armor against an AD top. You can have 2 pages for each one. But honestly, guys, it's not really worthwhile because you could have armor in your seals. Yeah, seals, excuse me. I thought I was saying the wrong thing there for a second. But yeah, armor seals and then armor glyphs. But the amount of armor the glyphs give you isn't really as great as the magic resist it gives you. And the same thing goes with the seals. It doesn't give you as much magic resist as the glyphs do. And so I find it just a lot better just to have a bit of both because regardless of who you're going against in lane, chances are the people you're playing against will have a bit of a mixture of both magic and physical damage. So you may as well just have a mixture of your own. Because although you won't do as well as you could in lane against someone who's AD with just straight armor runes, you'll be doing better with the rest of the game after laning phase is over. So it's a lot better way to go, in my opinion. This is what I'd recommend you guys do. You can change around if you want to, but this is what I would recommend. As far as our masteries go, guys, we've got this page right here, regular AD. So what this page basically is this is the page I use on pretty much all my AD tops. But for Wukong, it's good. It's perfect, actually, in my opinion. And if there's anything you guys think I should change, let me know. But from what I can see, it's really good. So we have this mastery right here. Now, the reason for this is because when I play Wukong, I always have Flash, Ignite, or Flash and Ghost. Now, the way I pretty much decide whether I'm going to use Ignite or Ghost is pretty much whether I want lane dominance, because I'm going to need a bit of an edge in lane, or if I feel like I'm going to be most effective in team fights later on. Now, Wukong is extremely effective late game in team fights because of his ultimate, and he can take either the tank role or he can take the role of just being the bruiser for his team who just follows him, does damage and peels and stuff like that. Like, you can do either thing. And so I find when you're playing as a tank, you're going to want to take Ghost, and if you want to be a bit more of a bruiser, more of assassin, take Ignite. Because if you combine Ghost with your ultimate, it's so crazy because the Ghost, it's if with this mastery it's actually going to increase to 35% bonus movement speed instead of 27, whereas also your ultimate will increase your movement speed by a bit. I don't know exactly what it is, but it increases your movement speed. And so when you stack the two, the Ghost and the ultimate's movement speed buff, it's crazy how fast you move around, and you just wipe our entire team and get them all knocked up and all CC'd, and there's just nothing they can do about it. Your team should follow up. It's perfect. So that's what I would recommend. I would recommend you guys have this mastery on. And if you take Ignite, you got that bonus damage for the ability power and attack damage by 5 if it's on cooldown. I'm just going to close this real quick here because I got to record this. Sorry, dude. I don't want to ignore you, but I'm just recording this right now, so I'm sorry about that. If the attack speed, I mean, it's great. I mean, you don't really need it all that much because he's more of I guess, an ability using champion, but having that attack speed is good, and it's better than the cooldown reduction, I think. So you want to have points in here so you can get your other stuff. So yeah, the attack speed, it gets the job done. You don't really need cooldown reduction, I don't find. His cooldowns are pretty short, so you really don't need it. So we got deadliness, and this is pretty much just attack damage. It's pretty standard stuff, nothing to really talk about there. Attack damage is good on an AD champion. Armor pen or armor ignoring or whatever it is, it's good as well. Definitely take that. No reason not to. This is also good, 2% bonus damage. It's great, why not? This one, honestly, I don't even find that really beneficial at all. Just a 5% critical strike damage just means you get a bit more damage. Actually, it's 10% for melee champions, but yeah, just a bonus damage to on your crits. It's not a big deal because you don't really build crit on Wukong all that much. I mean, your Trin Force is pretty much your only crit, and it's nice, I guess, to have, but the only reason you really take these points, guys, is so you can get your stuff above it, and you can't take any points out of it, so the chain, but lower on the page, you guys know what I mean. So yeah, you just need to take that so you get your other stuff. Brute Force, more attack damage, more beta. No reason not to take that. This one's more armor penetration, also very good on Wukong. Armor pen is really strong on him, so you definitely want to be getting that. There was not to. And then this one is just going to make it so you can last hit easier, I find, in lane. And it's also make it so you can get last hits on kills as well, which is also good. It just increases your damage by a tiny bit on players who are below 50% health. It's helpful. You may as well have it. No reason not to. As far as this goes, it really doesn't matter which one you take, perseverance or durability, but I like to take just one of them. I don't know why, but I hate having things not filled. I don't know why. There's a few exceptions, as you guys can see. I mean, I got 1 point in here because that one doesn't bother me too much, but just having a bit of each of these just kind of bothers me for some reason. So what I've got here is I got 4 points in durability because I find it really good. I prefer health over health regeneration. If I want health regeneration, I just take health pots. Like, I don't really need to build health regeneration in my masteries. I just don't find that necessary, but if you guys prefer that, go with it. Either of these really work. You don't want this. This is not going to help you at all because you're not taking in those masteries anyways because you're top. If you're jungling, in that case, maybe take it, but we're talking about top Wukong, so you don't really need that. This could be helpful, but I find it better in the jungle when you're actually tanking minions and monsters and stuff like that, whereas against minions, you really don't need that. So yeah, in lane, you don't really need this, but it can be useful if you find yourself taking too much damage from minions, but I don't find it that helpful. Like I said earlier, when you're playing top, you're going to be going against mostly AD tops, and because of that, I find it best to take mostly armor. Now, you could just remove 1 point from here and then put one in magic resist, but then you can't get your veteran scars, so I just went with 3 in here, because that way I can get my veteran scars, which is extra 30 health, which is really good. So consider I'm going against mostly AD tops, because there's not many AP tops. I mean, there are AP tops, don't get me wrong, I'm not retarded, but like there's more ADs. I think we can agree upon that. There are way more AD tops than there are APs, and so most likely this is going to be better for you to have more armor than magic resist. It's going to be better for you most of the time. There's going to be some times you're going against an AP top and you don't have as much magic resist as you could if you took 3 points into resistance, but you know, it's not the end of the world. You're going to be this is going to help you most of the time, right? So I mean, as you can see here on my regular AP page, which is usually my mid champions, I've got more magic resist because again, more mids are AP. There are some ADs like Kha'Zix, Zed, Talon, but most of them are AP. So that's pretty much my thinking behind that. And that pretty much summarizes the masteries here. I mean, I just don't find this stuff in utility all that useful in Wukong. You really don't need mana regeneration stuff because you're building that. I only find this stuff if you're useful if you're not really building it, which I am because I'm going to be going with a mana immune. So you really don't need this at all. I don't find it beneficial, any of this stuff. So this is what I would recommend to you guys is 2190. Pretty standard stuff, but just want to make sure it's pretty clear what I'm going with. Now let's take a look at the items that we have for Wukong. So I don't know why Mercury treads are showing up here. This is odd, but here we go. All right, now this is the starting items I go with when I'm going for with the mana immune. Now, before I get into the actual items itself, guys, I want to explain to you how the mana immune works on Wukong because basically Wukong, his abilities, his Q and his E especially, they buff him. His ultimate as well increases his movement speed when he uses it, but that's not really significant at all during laning phase. It really doesn't matter that much. What really matters is his Q and E, because what they do is his Q, it does damage, right? We all know this. His next to basic attack will do bonus damage. We know this. It also has increased range compared to a basic attack, but yeah. But what people don't realize is every follow-up thing you do after using that does bonus damage because the lowered armor. It reduces their armor by about 20%, 30%, 40%. I think it scales. I'm not exactly sure. It's either scales like that or it's just always 30%. I can't exactly remember, and that's my mistake. I apologize, but if you can spam abilities against your opponent and harass them a lot, the mana immune is so strong because if, like, okay, I should probably talk about the E as well before I get into further than this. The E, it's a gap closer. It doesn't do much damage. If you max it, it does a lot of damage, but compared to a basic attack, I guess, it does like a double the basic attack damage. But when you just have 1 point in it, it does less than a basic attack. So really, for early game, it's more utility of just gap closing as well as increasing your attack speed. But I think I'm almost certain the attack speed does scale when you level it up. So when you level up the ability, I think it starts off at like I think a 25% attack speed buff. I don't know exactly about this. I'm sorry if you guys are cringing because I don't know this, but yeah, I'm sorry. but I do know that it scales, and so it gets to like a 30%, 40, 35%, 40%, something along those lines. And so because it increases your attack speed, that's going to make you stronger in trades because you'll be able to basic attack faster than they can. And as against a top laner, basic attack fights happen a lot more often than they would happen, for example, in mid. So that's why it's really good to play Wukong top, pretty much. Honestly, you can play Wukong mid, but it doesn't work nearly as well because you're not going to be basic attacking very much, and that's why you don't really get that's why you don't get a mana immune on mid Wukong. It's not necessary. So Wukong with Mana Immune is really good if you're in a lane where you can spam Harass because you can just Nimbus on, Q, and you can sit there basic attacking because you have a ton of attack speed, they have lowered armor, and you're going to do so much damage, guys. You guys honestly don't even know what I'm talking about here because it's ridiculous. It really is. If you guys use this exact setup, you're going to be melting people because of how much damage you can be doing, and this is even early game too. Like, it's ridiculous. Once they retaliate, just use your W and walk out. And although that's 3 abilities gone, you have a Mana Immune, and you can just do that over and over again as soon as your abilities are off cooldown. And that's why it works so well, because you're going to win every trade, and as soon as they try to retaliate from you doing that, just W and walk out. And honestly, if you're good at using your W and moving into unpredictable places, you should be able to juke them and do just great. Like sometimes, once I start catching on, like my usual routine with the W is W and walk into a bush. You walk into the bush, you appear, and they don't see you because you're still in the bush. And they're just like, what the fuck, where the hell did this monkey go? Like, they don't know. And eventually they'll catch on once you walk out of the bush and like, oh, okay, he went to the bush. Once they catch on, this is when you start adding some stop jukes. And this is when it gets really crazy. Once they think you go into the bush, you stop. Like, once they catch on to that, then you, instead of EQ and then W, just EQ and stop right in the spot. And they'll just look around like, where does this guy go? He'll go into the bush and you just walk out. And you saved your mana and you made them look like an idiot. It's amazing. So definitely, guys, if you can win lane and you feel like you can win trades, get the Mana Immune. It's so helpful. And if you're doing that, this is the build you're going to want. So starting items, you're going to want a Fairy Charm, you're going to want 4 pots, and 2 wards. The Fairy Charm, because that goes right towards your tier, and that's going to give you more mana regen in lane, so you're going to be good in that department. The 4 pots is just sustain. I mean, it's nice to have. You could go 3 pots and 1 mana pot, or two of each. But this is what I find best, is just after 4, because I already have enough mana regeneration with the Fairy Charm. And the 2 wards, because the reason you're getting 2 wards here, guys, is because you're going to be winning lane if you're doing this build. If you're doing it and you feel like you can win lane and you're winning lane, you're going to want to ward up because the jungler is going to be after you. If you're not winning lane and you're sitting at tower, then you're not going to need to ward because you're sitting at tower. There's no point to ward. So that's pretty much the general consensus here. So if you're against someone you feel like you can destroy, this is what you want to do. If you're against someone you feel like is going to counter you and you're going to get raped, my perfect example I'm going to use here is Fiora. Now, the reason I'm using her is because, although I don't think she's a really good champion, I think she's kind of a shitty, stupid champion. My opinion. If you guys like her, that's cool. You can entitled to your opinion, but I really don't like her. I think she's stupid. And basically, my main rage that I've got towards her, is because she completely destroys Wukong, who's my favorite champion. And the reason she destroys him is because her W can block his Q, which is just one example. So if she times it well, she can block a lot of his damage output from his Q, and then also blocks the reduced armor, which really ruins his damage output further. Her ultimate also completely counters his, because what ends up happening is when you ult, she will ult, so you have to make sure you wait for her to ult before you use yours. Otherwise, if you use yours first, she's just going to ult you, she's untargetable, you can't hurt her, and your ult is now gone and wasted, and she's damaging you, and there's nothing you can do about it. In fact, actually, that's completely incorrect. There is something you can do about it, but it's kind of a waste. But basically, what you do if she does that is you stop your ultimate by pushing R again, and then just W. And because you're stealth, she'll stop ulting, but still, it's a waste. You have no ult now, and she has no ult, but you lost that trade significantly. So that's an example of someone you don't want to be trading with. And with Fiora, you're just going to need to get ganks and win lane like that, because that's the only way you're going to be able to do it. And so in that case, don't ball with Mana Immune. Just scrap it from the build completely, and just don't get it whatsoever, because it's not going to benefit you at all, because you can't win trades, you can't spam harass, you can't do any of that. So you just completely scrap it from your build, completely. And so if you're in a lane where you can win, and you feel you're confident you can win, then you get the Mana Immune. So if you're in a lane where you can't, just get boots and pots, honestly. You're not going to need the wards because you're going to be losing lanes. You're going to be sitting at tower. You're not going to need the wards. And the boots will allow you to be more mobile and get out of their harass and also dodge skill shots and stuff. So the boots are good to have in that sort of lane. So that pretty much just covers the basics. As for the boots, I have Mercury Treads because my way of looking at this is you're always going to want to have Ninja Tabby or Mercury Treads. Depending on an 80 top who has a lot of CC, get Mercury Treads because it gives you reduced CC, I think. Yeah, reduced CC tenacity. So that's really helpful. And if you're going against an AP top, definitely get Mercury Treads. There's no reason around it. So The biggest issue is when you're against an AD top who has a lot of CC. You kind of decide like, do I want to take less damage or do I want to be less CC? You gotta kind of decide, and you gotta decide which one's more important to you. But most of the time, I find Mercury Treads are more beneficial, and that's why I have Mercury Treads as my essential. But Ninja Tabi is also a really good choice. The Black Cleaver is a core item on Wukong. You almost always want to have it at some point. Maybe not as your first item sometimes, depending on whether you're winning or losing lane, but you definitely want to have it planned as one of your items you're going to have at all times. Like, you always want to plan to get this at some point. And the reason for that is because it gives you health, great on Wukong. Gives you attack damage, great on Wukong. Gives you cooldown reduction. Not necessary, but it's nice to have, nice addition. You know, it's not like, I'm not going to say no. And armor penetration, which is also super good on Wukong. So, all those are great stats to have on Wukong, and its passive is amazing on him. And let me try to explain this to you guys as best as I possibly can. Now, I do realize I have armor penetration in my masteries, but I'm going to just scrap those because that just adding in those little things is really going to make this kind of confusing. So, let's say you Nimbus onto an opponent, all right? You Q. And that's going to lower their armor by, I think, by 30%. I think it stays at 30%, not by any level. So 30% of their armor is now gone. And because of the Black Cleaver, you've hit them twice now with physical abilities, your Nimbus and your Q. That's an extra 10%. That's 40% of their armor gone. And now you ult. And this will last, your ult will last for 4 seconds. And this stacks for 4 seconds. Exactly, this exact same. And so what's up happening is as you're ulting, they're losing armor. And they are losing armor. And actually, they will end up losing 55% of their armor by the time you're done ulting. That's more than half their armor. It is completely gone. And that is why you get Black Cleaver on Wukong. It's so crazy to combine with your ultimate and your abilities, and it makes them so strong. And yeah, it's ridiculous. So definitely Black Cleaver at some point you're gonna want to get this for sure. The reason I have Phage here, guys, is because Phage, it gives you health, it gives you a slow, it gives you attack damage. It's great things to have. It gives you stickiness. Like, it's a great thing to have on Wukong. But the big thing comes in is whether you get Trinity Force or Frozen Mallet. Now, the way you pretty much decide which one you're going to get is depending on what role you are playing on your team. Are you playing as the tank, or are you playing as the assassin bruiser kind of champion? Now, if you're playing as an assassin kind of guy, or do you have a tank like a Shen or a Malphite or a Mumu, someone who's tanking for you, go for a Trinity Force, so that way you have a bit more damage, because this will give you a ton of stuff. I can list this all off because you attack damage, ability power. The ability power doesn't really matter, but just ignore that. Attack speed's nice. It'll stack with your Nimbus, and that's really nice to have. The critical strike chance really doesn't matter at all. It's nice to have every once in a while, but it really doesn't matter. The movement speed's cool. It's nice to have. I'm just going to decline that real quick. Sorry, dude. I'm really busy. 250 mana, and no, sorry, that's health. 250 health, and then mana. I mean, it's all just really small stuff. It doesn't really, it's not really all that significant. But what's really significant is you still have the Icy Slow, so the Phage Slow is still there. But the Spellblade, now this is the big thing. This is what makes Trinity Force so good on Wukong, because what happens here is after using an ability, the next basic attack deals bonus physical damage equal to 150% of your base attack damage on hit. This pretty much means that your next basic attack or next on-hit ability after using an ability will do 150% of your bonus, like as your attack damage as bonus damage. So a perfect example here is if you were to Nimbus and the basic attack, your Nimbus is going to do some damage, but your next basic attack is going to do, let's say you have 200 AD, alright, so let's say it's, well, I could say it's true damage, but they have armor, so, I don't know. I don't know how to explain this in a way that you guys can understand, but let's just say you Nimbus, you have your Spellblade up now because you use an ability, and your next basic attack, its power is going to be 200, which is your AD, plus 300, which is the Spellblade. That's 500 damage from your basic attack, and it won't be exactly 500 because of course they have armor, which comes into play. It's not true damage, so you guys see what I'm trying to say here. But that's crazy. That's ridiculous. So what you can do is in trades, you can just walk up to someone and Q them, and the Q is on hit. It works on towers. It's on hit. Not all on hit abilities work on towers, but it is on hit. The Wukong Q is on hit, and it doesn't work on towers. So what you're doing is you end up Qing, and that does a ton of damage, and it's gonna add on like 150% of your base CD. It does so much damage. I cannot emphasize that enough. It's ridiculous. So guys, definitely, if you want more damage output and you need to be a bit more assassin-like, I guess, and you don't need to be a tank for your team, definitely get a Trinity Force. Whereas if you need to be a tanky for your team and your team needs more sustainability in fights, Frozen Mallet's what you're going to want. Yeah, it's pretty much the consensus here, guys. It's nothing more to it. Damage, Trinity Force, tankiness, Frozen Mallet. Depends on what your team needs. Do you need an assassin? Do you need a tank? That's how you know. Now, if your opponents are building a lot of armor, you're going to want to be getting a Last Whisper. Last Whisper is going to just shred their armor because, I mean, like I talked about earlier, you can lower their armor by 55%, And like this, just it's ridiculous. You ignore 35% of their armor. Like if they have 100 armor, that means now they have what 65 or yeah 65 I think. That's ridiculous. It's a big difference. So guys, definitely if they have a stacking armor, go for the Last Whisper. And the reason I have Ravenous Hydra here, guys, it really doesn't matter whether you get Ravenous Hydra or Bloodthirster. To me, it's pretty much tomato tomato. They're pretty similar items. The difference being between the two, at least for me, is at least on Wukong that is this one will give you, I think it like gives you less attack damage, but it also gives you health regen, which is nice, I guess, because that will stack with your lifesteal if you need to. It doesn't really stack with your lifesteal, but the reason you get this item, I always put that out there right away, is so that you can have a bit more sustain when you're out in fights. Pretty much, if you're playing against a poking team like Nidalee, Lux, really poke high champions, what you can do is if you get poked down a bit, just walk into a bush, or not a bush, but just walk into the jungle and farm a few camps. You get some lifesteal because it has lifesteal, and the health regen will also get your health back up. So it's really good to have, honestly, for just poke games where you need a bit more damage and you need to have a bit more health regeneration. That's pretty much what it's for. It's not really good to sit there and try to lifesteal off someone when you're in a really close fight. It's really not going to help you up that much. The passive on it's also really nice where you can use the crescent and do some extra damage. It doesn't really do it all that much, but it's a thing. It helps. It's like It's basically an extra basic attack. That's pretty much all it is. And the unique passive of the I think it's called Cleave. Yeah, basic attack deals 20% to 60% of total attack damage as bonus physical damage. Yeah, you guys get the idea here. So this will also work with your Q, not just your basic attacks. So that's why it also can be really effective, because your Q is going to do a shit ton of damage if you have Trin Force especially, and that's going to splash because of the Ravenous Hydra. So it's really, really strong. And of course, Bloodthirster can work as well, guys. I mean, it gives you attack damage, it gives you lifesteal, so you can go and just farm up some camps, get your health back in, so you can go back into the fight. But really, this is what I prefer on Wukong, because I think I've explained it well enough for you guys to understand. That's just what I find best. So the rest of the items here, guys, are defensive items. Now, these ones are ones you're going to get depending on what you're playing against. So if your team, for example, needs a tank and you're the tankiest champion on your team, get a Warmogs. If you need to be tanky, this item's going to help you a lot. And it's really nice to have in fights an extra 1,000 health plus health regen that could stack with your Ravenous Hydra if that's an item you have already. And it's great to have if you need to be tanky. If you don't need to be tanky for your team, then don't bother with it. It's not worth it if you already have a tank. But if you need to be the tank for your team, then that's what you're going to get. And when I say be the tank for your team, guys, the difference for me between a tanky Wukong and a non-one is a tanky Wukong is going to be the guy who initiates a fight. He's going to be the guy who nimbuses in, Qs someone, and then all of a sudden he's going to just be there taking all the damage and just doing as much damage output as he can. Whereas someone who is tanking for him means he's going to follow up with something they're doing. So whether it's a movement with his ult, whether it's Malphite with his ult, whether it's Shen with his taunt, you're going to follow up with whatever the hell they're doing. That's pretty much the difference between a tanky Wukong and assassin Wukong. So the Mon Mortius is also good. This will allow you to have some magic resist and damage. It really depends on what you're playing against, though. Like if you're playing against an AD team, it's gonna be completely useless. But if you're playing against a high AP team where they have like Evelynn, Kayle, Lux, like just a ton of random AP champions all over the place, and don't really have any AD, and even if they have a bit of AD, but they're just mostly strong AP champions, grab Mon Mortius. It's gonna give you that shield, which is gonna save your life a lot of the time. Trust me, it saves my life a lot when I use it. And the extra magic resist, which is also going to help so much. So you could, while in lane, if you're against a top AP, just grab a Hex Shrinker and then leave it for a while and then finish it later on. And that could really help out. And a Sunfire Cape is pretty much the identical version of that, just for AD champions. Like it could work if you're playing as a tanky Wukong if that's what you want. But it's also really good in lane if you're playing against a really high attack damage champion and you just cannot go against them. Like this item for me is perfect when I'm going against Fiora, for example, because it's going to destroy her damage output because it's going to be health, it's going to be armor, so it's going to destroy that, and it's also going to do damage to her, and I think it actually does damage to her as well, because deals 40 magic damage. It's going to do damage to her while she's ulting as well, I think. I don't know that for sure, but just this is a perfect item against an AD top, for example. So if you're getting destroyed, this is going to help you, and if you just need some armor, because they have a ton of AD champions, like an AD mid, AD jungle, AD top, that's when that's going to come into play, and that's pretty much it, guys. A Randuin's going to also work, but I prefer Sunfire Cape personally. I just prefer it. But either which could work. And this is pretty much my Wukong build here, guys. Hopefully I explained everything as in-depth as possible, and you guys can understand everything and put it into play for yourself. And last thing's last, guys, with the Manamune, I think I may have mentioned this, but if you're in a lane where you just cannot spam harass and can't win lane like you want to be able to, don't even bother with the Manamune. Don't even get it late game, because late game, if you have full build, Manamune is useless. Sell the Manamune and get something else, because Manamune's only good in early game and mid game, because once you hit late game especially, Wukong is his ultimate. There's nothing more to it, really. Like, his Q and his E, I mean, they're utility more than anything, to be honest with you. His ultimate is going to be his main damage, and the Manamune is not going to be a thing anymore, because you're not going to be basic attacking, you're not going to be doing any of that. So you really don't need a Manamune late game. So if you're full build and you have a Manamune, just go ahead and sell it. Honestly, it's not going to be a thing anymore at that point. It's really only good in laning phase and maybe mid game. So hopefully you guys learned something today. I hope you guys take this information and put it into play. And if you liked the video, guys, make sure to leave a like rating. It really helps me out. And subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And I'll see you guys next time. Peace out.